How do you feel about the collection you have?
Feel good about the collection we have. I don't think it impacts the draft at all, one way or the other. I've always been a big fan of Brandon Allen. I think Will's got a lot of improvement he can make. And Tim's played a bunch of football too, so I feel good about the room as it is, and then we'll see what the draft brings, but it doesn't necessarily swing us one way or the other when it comes to the draft.
Was there any thought in going after maybe like a higher level quarterback?
Yeah, we explored a lot of different options in free agency. There wasn't it wasn't just one thing. You know, we did our due diligence and went through all the guys that were available and which ones fit best. And so yeah, we went through the process.
What about Boyle kind of adds something to your room that you didn't have?
Yeah, he's got some experience. He's kind of a different style player. He's big, strong, big arm. I always liked watching him when he was in Green Bay and I was in Detroit. Always see him in the pregame and he was throwing the ball well. So yeah, I think it's just adding a collection of arms that we can continue to develop and use.
He hasn't had a lot of success
in games. Yeah, he's had some moments. He hasn't played a lot either. So you try to do your best to watch the tape and see what it gives you, and then you look at the person and what they bring to the room in that regard. So it's a full picture that you get. But yeah, he hasn't probably played as well as he wanted to, I'm sure.
You guys have been pretty consistent on Will and adding competition, even when we talked about it at the end of the season. How unique of a situation is this for him, though, when you continue to add pieces and potentially still have yet to add more?
Yeah, I think that's the NFL, at the end of the day for him. I had a very straightforward conversation with him when the season was over and when we were getting ready to leave for a little bit of time, and just said, look, you worry about you. Don't worry about anything else. Control the things you're capable of controlling and put the work in for yourself. It doesn't matter what we do or how we do it. Expect there to be competition, and I'm excited to see what he looks like when he gets back.
What did you him and how well you feel like?
Yeah, I feel really good about that. I mean, we've spent a lot of time with him between the 30 visit, the combine, the pro day, and then the private. So we've had all of our possible touch points. We have a couple more hours of Zoom left to us per league rules, and we'll use all of those touch points that we get, and feel really good about what we've learned and how we've learned it. He's an impressive young man, and excited to kind of get through the rest of the process.
during his
Closer, I think. We have another touch point with the two players in Colorado with their pro day and a private workout with them. And then I would say probably we're about two weeks away-ish probably from being pretty dang close to what we want to do. But we'll still work through it. I think the one thing that's been impressive about Mike is very disciplined in his approach and his process, and I've appreciated that. And I think that he's going to go through every possible turn before we get to that point.
what did you ask?
Off their hand, how do they interact? That's my favorite part, is just watching. The pro day is one and the private's another. But with the pro day, you're just trying to look, see how do they interact with the players, how does he talk to his guys, how does he lead the group through the workout. And it's a small thing, but you can always glean something more from it by being there watching it occur. And then the private workout is fun because you get to actually coach. And so you can see how they respond to your coaching. You can see if they can make a coaching point correction if you have one for them. And then you just get to interact a little more, which I think is really fun. It's the best way to try to get a feel for what that's going to look like on a day-to-day basis.
As you go through more,
I think you do your due diligence and you weigh whatever it is that's being presented. If it's something that is you feel like is beyond the value that you would ever have thought you could get, that's one thing. But then you also have to look at what is a potential franchise quarterback look like. And if you think they're that good and they're that type of player, those guys to me are priceless. There is no price that you can put on those type of players if you think they're that caliber of quarterback. So that's what you look at, and you got to balance all those things, and you got to figure out is if there is a price that's being offered, is that what you want to do, and then is the quarterback worth passing on whatever that price could be. So I think it's mainly a quarterback-driven thing more than anything else when you're looking at that spot. But yeah, there could potentially be some offers, and those are things we got to look at and weigh when they come in.
so from your perspective, the Tennessee Titans are in fact open for business.
I think we're open to everything at this point. I mean, we've been consistent with that approach from the get-go, and that hasn't changed. We're doing our due diligence on all the options available to us, and when it comes time to make the decision, we'll make it. And there won't be really, we'll have done it knowing we've gone through every bit of the process and looked at every possible outcome, and feel really good about it at that point.
Brian,
Do
Chad,
you think there's a leader in the clubhouse at this point as it relates to picking the QB? And is there anything Shedeur could do to change their mind this weekend?
I think it's maybe I would be wrong to say there's a leader in the clubhouse at this point. We're still going through all of the process, and we got meetings coming up still that we have to finish. When it comes to the Colorado players, both Travis and Shedeur, their pro day and then their private workouts. So we're just looking for those guys to perform, and that's all we're looking for. There's nothing that they need to do or not do. We want them to just perform as best they can, and we'll do our evaluation part of it.
To what extent did Chad and Mike kind of update you on what offers you guys might be getting? What are those conversations kind of look like?
Not a lot. I mean, they're really, for me, not a lot of it. Those are conversations that happen between those guys a lot. And again, I think if there was a concrete offer that was thrown our way and there was something that was worth talking about, we would do that. But right now, it's a whole lot. Just I think Chad said it yesterday, but people just check in. They're just trying to see where we're at. A lot of that stuff starts to happen as you get closer.
What do you envision for Bryce?
I think it's unique to him. I think and it's not a bad thing that his dad's been able to be around. I mean, he's pretty good at what he does. So, I think you just have to separate. You have to separate what the difference is between just knowing and being with your dad the entire time, and what's that going to look like when you're not. And I think it'll be an adjustment for him just in general because that's just what he's used to. And the opportunity to enter the NFL and not be with your dad will be something that I think will be one of the things he's going to have to work through just because he's been with his dad for so long.
Right. How would you describe how those interviews went?
Our interactions with him have been really positive. We had him in for a 30 visit on top of it, and then we're heading out to his pro day. But I've really enjoyed him. I like his demeanor. I like the way he comes across. He's confident without being over the top, I think, which is a good thing. But I've enjoyed it, and I wouldn't say that I know him as good as some of the people that have worked with him for a long time, but all our interactions have been positive. I'm excited to see what he can bring. Certainly the D-line and the edge players are the strength on the defensive side in the draft. I mean, it's a deep draft when it comes to those two positions. There's some really good players, I think, that are going to go. There's going to be probably more defensive players drafted if you're just looking at it right now. But that's a deep position, and there's some really good players. A lot of different styles, too. So sort of whatever you're into, there's a version of that player that's going to be there in the draft. So I'm excited about that area. I think you can find some good players all throughout, but it's a deep draft up front on defense.
Having been in Cincinnati, you saw like a guy that wasn't drafted in the first couple rounds, and Henderson actually thrived. You look, maybe Max Crosby and Highsmith. There's not many that were drafted outside of the first two rounds. Do you look at that and weigh that into your decisions as you evaluate the class?
We evaluate the class all the way through, no matter what. Those players are a little bit of an outlier, those guys you just mentioned. But there is going to be good players available up front, I think, through all the rounds of the draft that can at the very least be a contributor for you. So we go through that whole process, and again, we're just starting to work the last phase of this draft process, and you start looking at the horizontal setting of the board, right? So you're looking at the positions by round, and now you're going to start to look across, and you look at, all right, we're in this particular spot, now what position are we favoring in that spot? You start to stack them in those areas where, everything's positioned first, and then you start to look across by pick and by round, what it's going to look like. So that phase is just starting up, and there's going to be a lot of decisions when it comes to this player, that player that come up through the whole draft.
You hopeful, Brian, that Cushionberry will be ready?
Yeah, definitely. I think Corey's proven to be a very capable backup at center. He knows the system. He's played well in relief of starters before, this year in particular. You always need to have centers, guys that can snap the ball, because I would say at minimum you need 3 for camp anyway to get through the preseason. But I think Corey's got a track record of being proven to be able to step in when needed, and hopeful that Lloyd's ready for camp. I think he's going to be right up there in that range in training camp to be able to get cleared. But we're going to be patient. We'll take our time with it because, again, big guys with those type of injuries, you just want to make sure that they're fully healthy. So we'll err on the side of caution as opposed to trying to make sure he's back at a particular time, but hopeful that he is for the start of the season.
How about Traylon?
One more time.
How about Traylon?
Traylon will likely at this point not be ready for training camp, but potentially for the start of the season. I think that timeline's a little bit.
Working it the way you guys are?
Yeah, I get where that sentiment would come from, but I'll just say this again: like the one thing that Mike has preached this whole process is that we're going to go through it, and that means making sure we're doing our due diligence on all the players available, all the options available. I think that's the right way to go about it, is to make sure you're doing the right things by every player that's there for you and looking at all the options, and then when you make the decision, and the decision's been made, then you move forward. But I think anytime that you just sit and you just pretend like there's nothing else out there, I don't think that's a disciplined approach. I don't think that you get a chance to look at the totality of the class. And so I just think there's a part of doing the job the right way, and I think that's our approach. And again, once we make the decision, no matter what it is or who it is, we'll be thrilled to death. But I think the right thing to do is to do it the way we're doing it and make sure that you turn over all the rocks and you go through all the things you have to go through until you get to that point. So, Mike and Nick work together in Jacksonville as well. Mike was sort of one of my early mentors in my career, hired me in Denver when I was first getting into the league. But he just got a lot of different experiences. He's called plays. He's been a head coach. He's somebody that I trust and that I can lean on for a lot of different things. But just to bring a little bit more perspective, experience from the offensive side and from the head coaching side. So excited to have Mike. I think he's going to have a lot of value. His role is totally separate from what Nick does on a day-to-day basis. He's just here to help us try to put a better offense on the field.
How excited were you guys?
I'll come back real quick, Buck.
There's a prospect out of Rutgers, Holland Pierce, who dropped.
Especially up front with those big guys, it does help determine what type of injury prevention and/or how likely they are to potentially have an injury. That's sort of one of the markers we look at. So anytime you're looking at big swings in weight and it's more about the composition than it is the weight. I think is the best way to put it.
I know you're looking for improvement on special teams across the board, but how big was it for you guys to be able to add Fossil and Johnny Hecker?
It was huge. It was huge. I think Bones is one of the best special teams coaches out there. One of the things that he brings too is incredible energy to the building. He sort of has this way about him with the whole football team that I'm really excited to see in action. I've heard all about it, but I haven't seen it yet, and that part I'm excited about to see. But just the experience of doing it for as long as he has at the level he's done it, sort of everywhere he's been a part of good special teams units, and excited to see him in action. Hecker is a good fit for him. They got familiarity. He knows what he wants from him in the punt game and where the direction of punting and all those things that go with it. So excited to have those guys. And Hecker's, kind of one of those top-notch style people that you want in your locker room. And I think that's a big bonus for us too, is that his ability to be in a leadership role from a special teams perspective is important too.
Probably always looking for that when you're adding players. But how big of an emphasis was that in particular this season?
It's a huge one. I think we're still trying to add as many good players as we can add, but the people part is important too. What type of leadership can they bring? What kind of veteranness do they have that'll help lift our team? I think that's the biggest point of emphasis for us is, are these guys going to lift the team, lift their position group, and do they have that kind of personality? And so that was part of the process. That was an emphasis that we put on the type of people we were trying to bring in.
Hey, Brian, just
improvement on special teams across the board. But how big was it for you guys to be able to add Fossil and Johnny Hecker?
It was huge. It was huge. I think Bones is one of the best special teams coaches out there. One of the things that he brings too is incredible energy to the building. He sort of has this way about him with the whole football team that I'm really excited to see in action. I've heard all about it, but I haven't seen it yet, and that part I'm excited about to see. But just the experience of doing it for as long as he has at the level he's done it, sort of everywhere he's been a part of good special teams units, and excited to see him in action. Hecker is a good fit for him. They got familiarity. He knows what he wants from him in the punt game and where the direction of punting and all those things that go with it. So excited to have those guys. And Hector's, kind of one of those top-notch style people that you want in your locker room. And I think that's a big bonus for us too, is that his ability to be in a leadership role from a special teams perspective is important too.
Probably always looking for that when you're at it.
Always.
But how big of an emphasis was that in particular this season?
It's a huge one. I think we're still trying to add as many good players as we can add, but the people part is important too. What type of leadership can they bring? What kind of veteranness do they have that'll help lift our team? I think that's the biggest point of emphasis for us is, are these guys going to lift the team, lift their position group, and do they have that kind of personality? And so that was part of the process. That was an emphasis that we put on the type of people we were trying to bring in. Yeah, he should definitely be ready for camp. He's moving right along in the rehab process. He's been around in the building, so that's been good to have him, to see him. He's been around almost every day, so that's good. I think he's in a good space. I think he's getting ready to come show. That last year was something that he was trying to prove that he's still one of the best corners of football, and I think that's a good place for him to be.